the science of boxing is what separates me from the others. I'm not staying up thinking about these guys, but I want it.
Well, you've got some intensity about you, boy. If you're going to say that somebody has been lying and cheating their way through an industry for 20 years, you better have some hard backing of that to be able to support it, which is why everyone's rode back from it.
I think the man who holds the purse strings maybe got on the phone said, lads, stop messing about. We've got a blockbuster card in 2 weeks' time. That's what I want the focus to be on.
You know, we're used like chess pieces on a chessboard. These guys are controlling our lives.
I call him an imbecile because I assume he can't read. But you've heard Turki Al-Sheikh talk about future boxing leagues. When you look at that as a fighter, what's your immediate reaction to that?
100%.
You like that one?
I love it. Just rock up, fight, and go home.
Welcome to episode 89 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan. Spencer Oliver is on the other side of the Atlantic, so I'm joined by one of the best voices in boxing, Adam Catterall. Nice to see you, mate. And also, I'm joined by the Ring and IBF Cruiserweight Champion of the World, a pound-for-pound contender, Jai Opetaia. Nice to see you, Jai.
Nice to be here, boys.
Welcome, nice to see you. October the 12th, you've got a fight coming up against our own Jack Massey. What's your view on that challenge awaiting you?
You know, I'm expecting a tough fight from Massey. He's a durable opponent. He's tough as nails. He's got a good engine. I'm expecting 12 rounds of war, man.
I think as a fight, it's the one that makes the most amount of sense because you've been making a lot of noise, obviously, haven't you, for unifications, and they can't be made at this particular time. Hopefully, in the not too distant future, we're going to see those dream fights that you're after. But I think Jack's absolutely earned his opportunity last time out, becoming European champ. We've even seen him step up at heavyweight, haven't we, and have a go up there as well. He fell short, don't get me wrong, but he had a really good go up there out of his weight class, and I think he's earned the opportunity to have a crack at the number one cruiserweight on the planet.
It must be an interesting one because there is an observation. I mean, there is a perception that you're the monster of the division. I think we universally talk about you in that respect, and that's not diminishing Chris Billam-Smith, our own Chris Billam-Smith, and any of the other champions in that weight class. But in recent times, with the exception of Breedis, some of the opposition that you've gone up against, there's been a little bit of criticism and pushback that they aren't at your level. Now, how do you feel when you hear that? Because the expectations of you are big, because you look the part, you go in there, you do the business, and you come with menace. But when you're fighting fighters with respect like Chisora or Jordan Thompson, there's going to be this conversation about levels. And there might be this conversation, with all due respect to Jack Massey, despite his win against Isaac Chamberlain, that again, we're talking about this pound-for-pound potential candidate going in against opposition that's perhaps not on his level.
Man, to be honest, I don't really listen to the outside noise. But if these boys aren't ready now, they're never going to be ready. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I'm trying to pick easy fights. I just fight whoever they put in front of me. You know, they give me a date. But I've been chasing these unification fights. Unfortunately, they haven't happened. So, you know, whoever's on the other side of that ring, that's all I've got to beat.
In your last fight, I think there was a lot of people that, especially with the start, expected you to make perhaps more hay in the fight in terms of overcoming it easier than it looked like. And I'm not suggesting that Marius Breedis is someone you can overcome easy, but I felt that you didn't look as good as I expected you to look. Now, I'm not trying to be controversial and get up your nose. I'm just being quite blunt. I don't know what you think, Adam, if you want to jump in,
I'll jump in
and help me,
carry on.
In case I get the death stare. But I looked at it and thought, that surprised me the second half of the fight. What was your takeaway from that fight?
You know, I feel like it was a great learning fight for me. You know what I mean? I feel like there was a few mistakes made. You know, but this is what creates progress. You know what I mean? I feel like a whole better version of myself since that fight. You know, it takes people a loss to learn what I learned in that fight. You know what I mean? But I got to learn it and I got the W. So it's all positive in my eyes.
What did you learn?
Just a few mistakes that we were making. You know what I mean? We've changed coaches. Not like there was anything wrong with my old coach, but, you know, even you talking about, you know, demolishing the first couple, you know, UK fighters, I think that got to my head a bit. You know what I mean? I wanted to, then I stopped boxing. You know, my boxing ability, my IQ, I'm born to box. You know what I mean? I had my first fight at 8 years old. I come from a fourth generation of boxers on my father's and a third on my mum's. So the science of boxing is what separates me from the others. You know what I mean? I didn't stumble across this sport, you know, like, oh, you know, I walked into a gym and, oh, I like this sport. I was born and raised.
Did you want to put a show for the Saudis? Is that part of the thinking when you get into the ring?
Exactly, yeah, that. But I think the way I sort of beat Thompson and then the way I beat Zorro, you know, and the excitement and, you know, everyone wanted to see the knockouts. I think I sort of focused too much on chasing those power punches and putting on those shows. And with Breedis, you can't do that against, you know, I feel like a lot of people are sort of undermining him. You know what I mean? I feel like I grew up watching Breedis, you know, like I come up through the rankings and Breedis was the top of the cruiserweight division. Winning that Ali trophy, I remember being, you know, watching him thinking, I'm going to make it there one day. You know what I mean? So to share the ring with him is a learning progress in its own. And to be honest, I still think he beats any of the other belt holders.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love the way that you were speaking about, obviously, maybe getting a little bit carried away, obviously, with the knockouts and what have you on the early Riyadh season, and appreciating what Maris Paredes is, because as you rightfully said, we're talking about a guy that was the number one in the division. He was the Ring Magazine champion. That's where you obviously snaffled the belt from, because you beat him the first time round. Go and watch Paredes' fight with Usyk in the first World Boxing Super Series. It's a majority decision. He pushes him all the way. He then goes and collects all the belts in the second season of the World Boxing Super Series. We're talking about an elite fighter, and maybe as fight fans, we looked at his age, we looked at his time out the ring and all those types of things, and maybe thought to themselves, well, he's come through it first time round with a broken jaw. He's going to absolutely smash him to bits the second time round. And maybe fight fans got carried away with that. I thought, listen, we're talking about an elite fighter. You navigated it, you came through, you've got the victory, and now on to hopefully bigger and better things, because as you're alluding to there, the biggest fight in this division, for me anyway, looking at it, and maybe I'm a little bit biased because I'm British, is this man against Chris Billam-Smith. And if Chris Billam can come through his fight with Zero Ramirez, which is, you know, could be a tough fight for him, but if he comes through that, we're talking about a big unification, which I know that you're excited about.
Definitely. I am excited for these fights, but Jack Massey has my full focus. You know what I mean? I am not looking past this fight. I know this is going to be a tough fight, so those fights will come when they come, but, you know, 12th of October, I'm locked in.
Do you think there's any possibility, it's been mooted, I don't know if it's in your minds, I know you're saying you're locked in on this fight, and so you should be. Do you think there's any possibility that Chris Billam-Smith is avoiding you?
Mate, you know, I got nothing personal against Chris Billam-Smith. I don't even know the bloke. No. You know what I mean? Like, all I chase is belts. You know, people want to hear me call out names and make it a personal thing between me and another fighter. It's nothing personal to me. I don't care who has the belts.
You just want them.
All I am chasing is, I feel like at this level of where we are today, you know, myself, Billam-Smith, you know, Zorro, these other guys, I feel like if we're not making unification fights, then we're only maintaining what we already have. And it makes no sense to me. You know what I mean? Like,
there was an irony in that, Jay, because you gave up your IBF belt to fight in a Saudi fight.
Yeah, well, that was a progress fight. Like, even though it wasn't for a world title fight, it was progress. Where I was and to what the doors that opened after that fight, for my career, for the eyes that were on me, that first Riyadh season, the names that were on that card, I feel like anyone that wouldn't have fought on that card was missing out, and they were. And it all worked in my favour, you know what I mean? Like, all I have ever done is focused on myself.
Yeah.
I have trained hard, made sure I, perform on the night, and everything else falls into place. I cannot be denied if I just win these fights. So that is my only focus. All the outside noise and the politics of boxing, it honestly, it does not get to me, because all I think about is winning fights.
What did you make as an interested party in the fight between Billam-Smith and Richard Riakporhe? Because I think a lot of people, I don't know where you were on it, Az, I think a lot of people felt that Richard Riakporhe's time had come and that he was going to deliver. He didn't. But there would be two opponents that would have been in your mind's eye, you know, on your radar. What was your takeaway from that particular fight?
Again, it doesn't bother me. You know what I mean? I'm not staying up thinking about these guys. All I think about is how I'm going to win today. You know what I mean? I'm training every day. And then as soon as they give me a date and they lock in a name, that is my target. Otherwise, it is just talk. All of it's just talk. It's just names getting thrown around. Like, and I hate talking about other fighters. Like, because what for? Like, why am I speaking other names? Like, I just focus on my own stuff.
Yeah.
And soon as they give me a date and they give me a target, that's who I got to take out. That is all I worry about.
I think that's why a lot of fight fans are falling in love with him, because of that attitude.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been watching him for the last couple of years, and on various other places that he's come on, we have unadulterated admiration for him. The interesting thing for me with Chris Billam-Smith is I'm kind of in this. I don't know what you think, Adam. There's this pressure building around Chris Billam-Smith to fight this guy, and my attitude is fight him when you want to fight him, not when he wants to fight him, and also, because he's the guy in the division that everyone's focused on, because he's the monster of the division and he's the name that was going to get paid, if you go in there, Chris Billam-Smith, with 2 belts, then you get yourself to the table where you can have a proper grown-up conversation about how the money is distributed rather than sit there and take what his team might be prepared to offer you.
I offered him more. I offered him more out of my paycheck. It
depends. I mean, if you're getting 80% and he's getting 20%,
no,
that
was a budget. And then they wanted to split it 50-50. And I gave him more. I offered him more.
More than 50-50?
More than 50-50. I offered him extra out of my purse so it would happen. I want these unification fights. Like, I said it to my manager. My manager goes, what? I go, why not? Like, I'm doing this for a bigger purpose. You know, the money will come. What do I got to run around and collect other belts? If I believe I'm the best, I'm actually I'm gutted that they're actually fighting and having a unification fight without me. I wanted to collect them one by one.
Yeah.
So there was no argument about it.
Right.
But unfortunately, it didn't happen like that.
How can you not love
what do you make of that?
No, listen, I wasn't privy to that that information, what Jai's just revealed on the show. My personal take on Chris Billam-Smith, I'm a big admirer of him.
Me too.
I think in the way that he went about becoming the champion and the fights that he's had since becoming champion, I've been a big admirer of that. I like the fight that he's taking with Zero Ramirez. I would have been critical if it wouldn't have been Zero Ramirez, because I had seen you on several occasions, obviously calling his name, wanting that particular fight, but because he's gone and he is unifying over there, I've no problem with that whatsoever. As long as, at the start of next year, this all comes back round and we see you two fight each other.
For sure. And even though, we're talking about him, I don't think he's an easy fight. I don't think he's a bad fighter. I think he's a hard fight. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to even take an easy fight, or I'm not trying to say he's, this or that. But he holds a belt that I want. That's the only reason I want to fight. You know what I mean? Like, in no way is this personal, or I'm saying he's a bad dude or a bad boxer or a bad fighter.
You just want what he's got.
I just want the belts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's that simple. So I just doing what I can do to make it happen.
When you look at that fight, given the fact you're sitting next to him, what do you think? I mean, they will land. If Chris Billam-Smith wins wins both belts and beats Ramirez, they're going to land in one another's space relatively shortly, aren't they?
Yes.
When you look at that fight, well, absolutely. If what you're saying is that there's going to be parity at the table financially, then there must be an element in the back of your mind he doesn't want to fight you, but we'll not dig into that because you're not bothered about him. But there's going to be an opportunity. There'll be no opportunity for him not to fight you soon, because if he beats Ramirez, then you win your fight, which I expect you to do. Then you're going to be in a situation where the doors are closing on this room where they'll have to fight one another to be able to maintain the credibility of both of their positions. When you look at that fight, how do you see that one playing out?
Putting me on the spot now.
Absolutely.
I'm sat next to the fella.
Absolutely.
No,
it's a good fight.
It's a great fight. Listen,
it's a good fight. I respect him as a fighter. I think he's a hard fight. He's got that will to win. He keeps proving people wrong.
Indeed.
And he's a great fighter, and he's tough as nails. It's hard to beat someone that doesn't want to lose. You know what I mean? I don't think it's easy at all. But I want it.
Good for you.
Let's go.
Well done.
Why not? There's only one in this sport. Why are we even talking about it still? It should have happened a while ago, I reckon.
And this is the frustrating thing from a fan point of view, isn't it?
Because don't get away from the question.
I'm coming back to it in a minute.
Sorry.
No, I'm 100% going to come back to it. Fans get frustrated when we can obviously see semi-finals being set up.
Yep.
We've missed out on AJ Wilder. We may have missed out on AJ Fury because of these navigations that we tried to had. Let's just get the fights on when the fighters are in the prime and ready to rock and roll, as these two gentlemen are. Going back to what he said, I agree with everything he said. I always look at, right, who wants it more? Who's the bigger dog in the fight? I know that he wants it because he's gone through broken jaws and various things like that in order to get victories. I know that Chris Billam-Smith wants it. It's going to be very hard for either man to outdog the other one within the fight. So therefore, it's going to come down to a skill set.
Exactly.
I'm not saying it because he's here. The amateur pedigree of this young man and the way that he progressed to the particular point and the level of opponent that I rate Brady's at, I think he might nick it, but we don't know. We need to see. We need to see the fight.
Listen, every time Chris Billam-Smith goes into the ring, with the exception of Masternak, I've sort of found against him. I thought Lawrence Okoli would beat him.
But look at the Masternak fight.
And I thought
they're all dog fights.
And I thought Riakporhe would beat him.
Masternak's the only one with the movement.
Yeah.
And he had the worst trouble with it.
Whereas in this fight, with all due respect to Chris Billam-Smith, again, I make the same consideration, and I'm delighted for him. I'm glad he's got a world title. I know what it means to him. I'm glad he's getting paid. I'm glad he's sorting himself out economically for him and his family. But I find it really difficult to make a case for him, not because he's here, because if I felt the polar opposite, I'd say the same. But I can't see past Jai in this fight. I can't see past the superior skill set that I think he has.
But he has to apply it. He has to apply that skill, as you were talking about 2 minutes ago. Not chasing the big knockout punches, because that then plays into that type of fight.
And that's what I mean. These fights are learning progresses. You know, people got to understand. Man, I've only been on the international scene for 4 fights. Before that, you never knew who I was. And this is why I take these fights with, Zorro and Jordan Thompson so serious, because I was in their shoes.
Yeah.
I was just waiting for my opportunity, waiting for that, that world title shot to come, and no one believed in me. I come against all odds. So that's what I'm waiting for, another Jai Opetaia. You know what I mean? I've got to take these guys serious, because there's a guy out there that's like me, waiting for their opportunity.
So when you do what you no doubt believe you're going to do, which is unify the division, and in as quick order as you possibly can, what happens next for you? Are you going to take this well-trodden path of David Haye, of Evander Holyfield, and of course of Alexander Usyk, and find yourself as a unified cruiserweight looking to move up into the heavies? Is that what your longer-term plan is?
Definitely. Now we've got this bridgeweight as well, and I'm hoping by the time I collect these belts and handle my business and do what I got to do. But to be honest, it's all talk. You know what I mean? Like, it is the goal. I'm hoping that bridgeweight is going to be, a couple more names in there, and be able to stop by there, get a world title, and then we can go to heavyweight. The opportunities are endless, honestly. But that is just all talk unless I handle business on the 12th of October.
Of course.
So it's just 12th of October has my full focus. I must win.
No, the reason why I'm asking, not to distract you from your core principle, is that I spoke to David Haye the other day, and he talked about when he won and unified the cruiserweight, he immediately, without even telling his trainer, Adam Booth, announced to the world that he was going to fight at heavyweight. So I'm not trying to distract you or make you feel beyond the... I'm just curious to see if that is your destination. Definitely. If you'd be happy dominating the cruiserweight division and beating everybody else, or if you want to go up to heavies, because the economics of heavies will change the dynamics for you again, but it is part of your desire.
Definitely, it's something that I've always, it's been in my goals. It's like working my way down that list, you know what I mean? You're ticking boxes, and it's definitely a box that I would love to tick. And I feel like I'd be able to hold the weight very easily. Do
you think it'd be big enough, Adam?
I know I'll be big enough.
Yeah.
I've moved around. Like
big enough boy, isn't it?
they called me into, Fury's camp. I've moved around with him for the Usyk fight. Like, I move around with a lot of heavyweights all the time. I know I'm big enough. I know I can hold my own against them. You know what I mean? And like, this boxing's changing. You know what I mean? It's not about who eats the most punches and keeps walking forward anymore. Look at Usyk, he dominates. It's about hit and not get hit.
Yep.
That's science of the sport, you know what I mean? And like I said, I'm born and raised in this. I live in it, you know what I mean? So it's just going to be fruit of the labour.
I remember this guy when he was 16 years of age. Right. 2012 Olympics, do you remember it?
I've always been there. I've always
16
been in those
representing his country at London 2012 Olympics, man.
I've always been there, and my time is coming. I've always been in those shadows. Usyk won my division. And I missed out on that, but just learning, just always been there grinding, you know what I mean? In the darkness, no one's really noticed me, but we've always just been working hard. And now it's starting to show, You know what I mean? Now the time is starting to come.
Well, you've got some intensity about you, boy. I can pretty much attest to that.
We belong here.
Good for you.
We deserve to be here. This isn't by mistake. We deserve to be here.
What about the suggestion that you might fancy a tilt at the winner of Bivol versus Beterbiev?
Those fights, you know, they're just they're super fights. You know what I mean? Like as a career path, it's not something that I'm like, you know, it's gonna. But it's a super fight.
It's an event.
You know, how can you not take that fight? You know what I mean? When you get a big name like that, it's healthy for the paycheck, and I respect both of those fighters. You know what I mean? Like I'm a massive fan of Bivol. You know what I mean? And respectfully, I would love to fight someone like that. You know, like I grew up watching fights back. Like my old man used to force me to watch fights. Like, watch this. See what he does. See what he's doing. You got to do this. You got to do it. And I feel like me fighting one of them fighters is one of those fights that a coach will show their fighter and be like, see what he's doing. See how they're fighting. So being a part of a fight like that is an honour. So I look forward to things like that.
A thinking man's fighting it.
Exactly. A chess match. It's the science.
That's what they are.
The heavyweight division is so exciting because they knock each other out. When you signs of the sport, you know, you get it and you can work with it.
Okay, let's talk about that particular fight because again, it's the headline fight. It's a fight being greeted with a lot of fascination by the boxing fraternity. Maybe the casual audience isn't quite as acclimatised.
Which is a shame because
you've got two world-class operators in there. When you both look at that fight, A, who do you pick, and B, how do you see this fight playing out? Whoever wants to go first.
I've always gone Bivol, if I'm honest.
Have you?
Just because of the way that he can control the geography on the mat. His feet are absolutely superb. The way he gets in and where he gets out, his use of his jab. And he doesn't waste anything. He's just so precise with what he does. So I've always thought that Bivol could outbox Beterbiev, but then I've seen Beterbiev live and up close and personal. And I think to myself, geez, man, he's far much more than what I originally thought he was. Sensational jab, very similar to what I've just been speaking about, the footwork, and he's relentless. He's like a concrete blanket, you can't keep him off. So now my thought is, does Bivol hit hard enough to stop him coming forward? So as we stand here, and I might change in 2 weeks, gentlemen, I'm currently thinking that Beterbiev will win via stoppage, but I think he'll be well behind on the cards. I think Bivol will be well up at the time that comes.
What about you, Joe?
Man, this is, like I speak about the science of the sport, man, this matchup is a boxer's fan's dream.
It's the best fight in boxing, isn't it?
You got the guy that just comes forward and he walks forward perfectly. Like, he just makes people miss by millimetres. And then you've got Bivol, who just keeps everyone right on the end of his punches, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I'm so curious to see how this sort of pans out. Like, Beterbiev just applies such smart pressure, you know what I mean? Like, he just inches forward. I watch him and I think, how aren't they hitting him? Like, why is he so hard to hit, you know what I mean? But he just masters his own style. But Bivol's footwork and his work rate, like, he's fit. He does the hard yards. You cannot deny his hard work, you know what I mean? To be able to move like that and punch as much as he punches, he goes into deep waters. You know what I mean? That's the type of stuff that it's not about what you do, it's how you do it. And he does it properly. It's perfect practice, you know what I mean? So I just feel like I'm more of a fan of Bivol, you know what I mean? I just because of his footwork. But man, what an exciting fight.
What are you at?
I'm at, I've obviously watched Bivol against our own Craig Richards, which I didn't think was an impressive performance. And I think people looked at Craig and thought, well, if you'd have believed yourself a little bit more, you might have got a better outcome in that fight. Then I looked at him against Canelo Alvarez and you got a completely different set of scenarios.
Awesome.
And I've watched him in his recent fights, but I saw Beterbiev up close and personal. I saw what he did to Anthony Yard. And some would say that maybe Anthony Yard isn't at the same level as Bivol. I think most people would say that. But I think Beterbiev just is a remarkable fighter. I think he hits hard, and I think the more you put it on him, the more he comes back stronger. And I think that he will be in the exact same space that you've denoted, which is he'll be behind on points because of the discipline and shape of Bivol, but I think he'll catch him. So I'm probably going against the orthodoxy of the two people that know damn sight more than I do, but I'm going down the Beterbiev route.
Two amazing jabs, aren't they?
Oh,
just
it's honestly just
use them properly.
perfect matchup. You know what I mean? Like just the style that walks forward against the style that just, you know, the front foot fighter against the back foot fighter. It's
a proper fight, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's the best fight in boxing.
Proper
awesome.
fight, proper
Superb.
fight, proper card across the board. You had a fun week sitting at a press conference last week. You got to sit there listening to the utterings, mutterings and splutterings of the inimitable Chris Eubank Jr. When you're sat there listening to that, what was your sort of reaction to it? I know Frank couldn't hear it initially, and then when it caught up with him, ultimately he did hear it. But when you're sat there listening to that, what were you thinking?
Mate, you know, it's I got nothing personal against Frank Warren or, you know, Eddie Hearn and stuff like that. But I've had run-ins with promoters, you know what I mean? You know, it's a touchy subject to sort of talk about, you know what I mean? Because I don't want to be writing a apology post tomorrow, you know.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's a bit
I'm not asking
sensitive
you to
and you
comment on what
can't
he
say
said,
things like that. But
were you surprised? Were you like?
I'm not so.
Because everyone else sitting outside.
Listen, the way he said it and how direct he was, I was thinking, bast. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. You know, he should be able to speak how he wants to speak. But, you know, well, fighters aren't treated with the respect they deserve. You know, we're used like chess pieces on a chessboard to some people. You know what I mean? So sometimes they want to demand a bit more respect. You know, we're in there sacrificing our lives. You know, the pain and sacrifice we have to go through for years. You know, like I said, I deserve to be here. You know, like I have dedicated my life to this sport. You know, and then to be told what I can and can't do and when I can and can't fight, you know, like, it's crazy. You know what I mean? These guys are controlling our lives sometimes, you know what I mean? It's, man, it is what it is, you know what I mean? But at the same time, we live and die by the sword, don't we? We know what we're fighting for.
Right.
We know what business we're in.
And you signed a contract.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it is what it is, but it's all a learning progress, you know? Like I said, I've had run-ins with, you know, past promoters and stuff like that, and we've learned from it. It's made us better in the ring, outside the ring, as it's helped us become, you know, matured in life.
Yeah, wiser, more experience.
It is what it is.
Get people around you that you can trust and rely on and build relationships with them. Where are you? I mean, when I saw it, I have to say it made me laugh because he pretty much went after everybody. Mm-hmm. I don't think you can say the things that he said and get away with it unless you can stand it up. If you're going to say that somebody has been lying and cheating their way through an industry for 20 years, you better have some hard backing of that to be able to support it, which is why everyone's rode back from it. But when you listened to it, what was your thought process?
It's Eubank Jr.
Absolutely. That was me.
This is how he rolls. And listening to Jai speak there, that's not isolated. I'm sure Eubank Jr.'s thought processes towards promoters aren't isolated. There's plenty of fighters that will have similar thoughts, but you're exactly right. If you're going to say things like that in a public format, you're going to have to be able to back it up. And if you can't stand them up, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble. What I do think, and what I've commended, is how quickly it was sorted like that. I mean, imagine now we have a 2-week period.
Gee, I wonder why that was.
I know exactly why that was.
Oh, why is that then?
I think the man who holds the purse strings maybe got on the phone said, lads, stop messing about. We've got a blockbuster card in 2 weeks' time. That's what I want the focus to be on. I've put on the best fight in boxing. That's where I want my focus to be. Can you two sort this out, please? And it was sorted out incredibly quickly, which I think is a really good thing, because the last thing you want, as these guys are preparing for these big fights, YouTubers and what have you, to have the microphones asking questions about that. Let's concentrate on the fights that we've got, a good card with the best fight in boxing. That's where the focus should have been.
I thought it was very clever. I thought it was clever in one respect and not in another. I thought it was scattergun, so it took everybody down, so no one can talk about any favourites. I thought it was clever positioning, because it's Chris Eubank Jr. saying to the Saudis, I'm an island on my own, and I'm looking to have a relationship with you. I'm going to have a relationship with you on your card, and you're going to be dealing with me. And it's nice that Ben's here, and I'm glad to be with Ben currently, but the reality, Ben Shalom, my real endeavour is I'm the Chris Eubank show, and the Chris Eubank show is rolling into town, and the Chris Eubank show is an island, and it'd like to have it deal directly with the Saudis themselves. That was my underlying message, and I don't think that I took away from it, and I don't think he gave a about who he said what he said about until someone said to him afterwards, the reality of that, mate, is you might get handed to you, metaphorically.
Yeah.
And so with that in mind, everyone rode back. I would imagine it was a very interesting green room afterwards when Frank Warren probably strode into it and told people precisely what he thought of their opinions. But you're probably right. In the interests of where things are going, it probably is better to have order. Some people looking in from the outside would say, someone spoke the truth for the first time. I'm not sure that's right. There's a version of the truth. There's two versions of the truth.
Of course.
And they get played out in certain people's minds. But I thought it was an interesting watch, and it would have shocked a few people and unnerved a few people and livened a few people up. And he didn't miss. Even his sister's husband was brought into the equation. If I'm led to believe
Christmas dinner's going to be fun, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to talk to you, Adam, specifically, rather than Jai on this one, about a column that I wrote in the newspaper last week.
Yep.
And it was about the Saudi event and about the spectacle. And I wrote an article that seems to be being responded to by predominantly the two promoters that were involved, being Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren, quite robustly, and answering things that I never said and discussing things that I never wrote about. My article was about that the Saudis are fully entitled, as is everybody in the world, to invest in whichever sport they want to. And that it is a great thing that they're looking at the sport in the way that they are. But my main question, given the fact I own a football club that at one point had a Dubai-based business as their shirt sponsor, the idea that I don't want Saudi investment is just ridiculous. But a lot of furore was kicked up about me concentrating on the national anthem that was played for the Saudi Arabians in a British ring at a British event with only British fighters. And I wondered what your thoughts are on it, because Eddie's gotten very vociferous. He's called me a variety of names. I mean, I called him an imbecile, so he's entitled to call me one back.
Back and forth, you two.
But I called him an imbecile because I assume he can't read. Because if you read the article, he couldn't make the assumptions that he made. But I was interested to see what you thought about the subject matter, because to suggest that it's steeped in some sort of resistance to the Saudis is just outrageous, quite frankly.
I read your article. I thought it was balanced. I thought the points that you were making were exactly as you've just portrayed it there. I was obviously in attendance that night at the Wembley show for AJ versus Dubois, and the national anthem played out. So my attitude towards it is that I'm not offended by it at all. I have no real thought process.
By the way, neither was I.
To it.
I thought it was strange.
I get that, and I get your angle on it, and your opinion on it. For me, if we go back 12 months, let's say, before Riyadh season became a thing into the world of boxing, I've had many conversations with you where I've expressed my frustrations about matches not happening and various frustrations that I've got within the sport. We're now 12 months on, and Riyadh season has been a really good thing for boxing because it's obviously brought us fights that we all want to see. Yep. It's given opportunities to fighters that we want to see get those opportunities, and it's only, it seems, getting better because we're talking about a fight that is the best fight in boxing, Beterbiev Bivol. We stacked on the card underneath it that everybody's extremely excited about it. And that's my focus, purely. I just want to see the best fight, the best guys. If there's little bits that come along the way that the people that hold the purse strings want, I'm all right with it. If I'm dead honest about it. And I think the majority of fight fans, when I speak to them, I don't think they're bothered about it either. I understood the point that you were making in the article. I completely agree that maybe some people have heard things and gone off on a different tangent and made it something that it's absolutely not, because I thought there was a lot of fair points in what you were making. Yeah,
I mean, the article is predominantly about the values of our country. And I agree that if the Saudi Arabians want to pour hundreds of millions of pounds into boxing, then what they request of it is something that should be discussed. My bigger question is how far are you prepared to go and how far you allowed things to manifest themselves? And the bigger question for me was not about Saudi investment and not about Saudi principles and not about denigrating their national anthem. It was simply questioning why sometimes in our country are we quite prepared to sell everything to everyone and to retain no value.
So it was more of a political angle rather than a sporting angle?
Well, it certainly wasn't about the Saudis. And it certainly, and ultimately, it makes a very difficult situation for both Eddie and for Frank, because if you're going to have freedom of speech shut down, if you're going to have journalists shut down, which is what happened on that evening, then you're in a country where freedom of speech is the cornerstone of that democracy. And if Eddie and Frank were to take away the commercial proposition and to look at the integrity and their values, they're prepared to compromise their values and principles for the financial gain. And I understand that. It's a business.
Yeah.
And I understand what the fighters are getting from it. And I also think it is relatively ridiculous, and you've made this point, and I'm going to address it quickly before we move on, to suggest that these fights couldn't have been made. Because if we've got...
Well, they weren't being.
Well, then what does that tell you about the people that are now being applauded for making these fights? Or what they've had to do, which couldn't be done previously? If you've got Tyson Fury being represented by a British promoter, and you've got Anthony Joshua, which is the fight that everyone wanted for years, Fury versus Joshua, represented by a British promoter, both of them belt holders, and you can't get two British promoters with two British fighters to make fights, what does that tell you about what they're doing? And what does it tell you that it needs the Saudis to come in to be able to fix a problem that should never have been there in the first place? Promoters should have been able to make fights, and all that's really happened in this marketplace is the price tags got bigger.
Yeah.
The same things are getting paid twice the amount of money to happen. And ultimately, I think it reflects badly on those that are saying, well, hang on a second, don't dare criticise the Saudis, because none of these fights would ever have been made if they hadn't have come in. And there might be some truth to that, but then they should look at themselves as well and say, why is that the case?
But are fight fans bothered about that?
No, I know they're not. And that's a fair comment.
From my point of view,
That's a fair comment.
As a fan, I'm not bothered who represents who. I don't care who puts what fight on. I want to see the fight.
Happen. Yeah.
And Riyadh season absolutely has come in and been able to satisfy the ego and the greed of whatever that was previously that was preventing those fights from happening. And we're seeing them now.
I agree. It just would be nice if people, if they have an issue with something, to address the issue that's written rather than position themselves and because they want to keep...
I think we both experienced
certain
that.
Parts of their anatomy in a trough.
Yes.
Anyway, let's get back in the ring. It's more interesting. I'm interested to see, we're 10 days after the event now, 9 days after the event. What your takeaway is from the fight, the main event that you saw last week, in terms of Dubois versus Joshua. Where were you before the fight? Were you, like a lot of us, thinking there's a possibility that Dubois could do some damage, but really, on the balance of probability, thinking it was an AJ outcome?
I did. Man, it's like AJ had those bad performances, and then you give him two, good performances, and then all of a sudden he's back. You know what I mean? It was a good build-up, But I did see AJ winning. But yeah, just Daniel's chin, man. He honestly has one of the best chins in the heavyweight division.
Yeah.
Like I was there when he fought Miller, and just the way he just eats those shots, and he's able, just because he eats them, he just works them down. And then who's the other European?
Filip
Ergovic.
Yeah.
I watched the first round. I was thinking, he's going to get knocked out here. I thought Ergovic was going to knock him out. He just straight rights, straight on the chin. And he just ate him up. Like, he wasn't even wobbling, you know what I mean? And then Ergovic got tired and he just broke him down. Like,
who did you pick?
That's crazy.
When you were looking at the Dubois, it's built the other way, wasn't it? When you were looking at the Joshua-Dubois fight, when you were looking at it, before, where were you?
I went a bit off track, didn't I? I was leaning more towards AJ.
Were you?
Yeah.
Were you surprised by what you saw from Anthony, or was it just all about Daniel?
Say that again?
Were you surprised with what you saw from Anthony? Because a lot's being made now. Everyone's a Monday morning quarterback, right? Everyone's going, well, he walked in a ring and he didn't look right. And he walked in a ring and he had his hands down by his sides. And all of that. And, we've heard him in the corner. And Conor McGregor bet 100 grand at 50 to 1 in the 5th round, or whatever else is the latest version of events. But were you surprised with what you saw from Anthony Joshua? Or to your mind, was it just, it doesn't matter what Anthony Joshua did, it was all what Daniel Dubois did?
If I'm being completely honest, I didn't even watch the fight live.
Useless you are.
I know. I was actually at a family event, and then I just ended up watching the highlights. But so can't help you too much on the whole performance. But yeah.
Where are you both on the rematch clauses? We know there's not a rematch clause. We know there's a slot that's available, and we are led to believe now that this is pretty much a done deal between the two camps, aren't we? In terms of the rematch. Where are you both on that?
Rematches, for me, should be dictated by the quality of the fight that is presented to us. For example, we're getting Wardley Clark on the card that Jai's on, and the reason for that is because it was type
Yeah,
fight. It was a great fight.
This one wasn't.
Rematch clause, stick them in the bin, man. At the end of the day, let's have a fight. If it's conclusive, that fighter should be allowed to move on into whatever. So from this conversation comes, from my point of view, down to Daniel Dubois. What do you want to do, mate? You've conclusively taken care of Anthony Joshua. What is your next step? Now, the titles are all obviously occupied by December 21st. Looking forward to that fight. So is there another fight out there that is commercially viable for you? Does it have the stature for you to be able to move forward? I personally think there is one, which I'll name in a minute. Or is the Anthony Joshua rematch the best option for you next? And if he's decided that, cool.
Well, look, let's hear some videotape that we got of Daniel Dubois talking about that himself.
Daniel, now there's talk of a rematch. Do you want a rematch?
Yeah, if that happens down the line, yeah. If that happens next year, yeah, go for it. I want to do even better next time. So, yeah. I know where I need to improve on as well. So, yes, as a champion and as a fighter, I just want to, prove people wrong all the time, and that's what we've been doing.
Given you didn't watch the fight live, I'm not going to ask you this question. I'm going to ask him on it. What was your sort of takeaway when you're watching the fight, when you were looking at the role of Daniel Dubois, the evolvement of Daniel Dubois, what's gone on with him?
I think from a physical point of view, he's always had the tools to be able to become one of the very best heavyweights on the planet. He uses his jab really well, he doubles it up really well, and that right hand is naughty. And as Jai's just been saying there, he can take a shot. I think previously he's maybe doubted that he can take a shot. I don't think he'd been polished enough and understood enough when he got into some adversities, i.e. Joe Joyce and what happened in the Usyk fight. He didn't know how to deal with it. He was young, he was inexperienced, maybe a little bit green. But now working with Don Charles, the penny seems to have dropped. He's believing in himself. And regarding the way that fight played out last weekend, I'm sure Anthony Joshua had a game plan. I'm sure Daniel Dubois had a game plan. Daniel Dubois did not let Anthony Joshua get his game plan off. It's as simple as that. That right hand at the end of the first round, he sent AJ all over the place. His legs aren't necessarily with him. One thing that I will say about AJ is the size of nuts that he showed to keep getting up, walking into the fire and keep trying was absolutely commendable. He just couldn't get his work off because Daniel Dubois on the night was too good for him. That's as simple as that. That's how I saw the fight.
Did you think that? I mean, because obviously I've watched Daniel's career. I remember Jeff Powell in the Mail writing an article about 4 or 5 years ago, I often reference it, talking about the future of heavyweight boxing and basically saying to the reading public, forget about Fury, forget about Joshua, this kid is coming through. And then I sat in the Mansion Club for that behind closed doors during COVID, we're just coming out of COVID,
against
where
Joe
he
Joyce.
fought Joe Joyce.
Yeah.
And he looked out of sorts when he walked into the ring. He didn't look, there was nobody in the auditorium
It's a close
besides
fight,
his family.
It is a close fight.
Yeah, I know it was. But he was running out of ideas in it, wasn't he? And
Well,
you saw Joe Joyce, and then you've seen subsequent to that, you've seen him fight Trevor Bryan, you've seen him fight Kevin Lorena.
Yeah.
And then he's gone in against Alexander Usyk and put on a commendable performance, but questions came out of it about whether he quit. And I'm not saying he did or he didn't, but I think there's a perception that he did. And then obviously Baby Miller, and then you've got Filip Hrgovic. So we've now got a kaleidoscopic view of Daniel Dubois. You've probably watched him even in more detail over the years. Is he where you thought he would be? Has he arrived at the place that you thought he would arrive at?
Eventually, yeah. The bumps along the way I didn't fully anticipate. I backed him actually to beat Joe Joyce that night. But again, he experienced something that he's never experienced before, that orbital bone fracture. I think he panicked in that particular moment and he made a conscious decision to then end the fight. Regarding the Usyk one, I think he's panicked in the moment of the low blow. He's in a 60,000 stadium away from home. He doesn't know what the heck's going on. He's a little bit green in that moment, and it's ended up coming against him because he's fighting one of the best fighters on the planet who used his experience and got the job done. You brought up the Kevin Lorena fight there. Look at that. The guy's Achilles went in the first round. He gets put on his backside against a guy coming up in weight that should never have even chinned him, and he comes through it. He rolled the stone in. So there's been a lot of little bumps, a lot of little learning curves. Okay, we didn't go from A to B. We might have gone through a few different pit stops along the way, but he's now arrived at a point where pre-last Saturday, I'm like, I don't need to see the Usyk fight again. Now I'm like, I absolutely need to see it because this is a different guy that stood in front of me now. This is a guy that has got a completely different mentality.
I think we also need to talk about his trainer, Don Charles. Don came into a show last week, I did last Monday, and I saw the beginnings of a certain thing, and then I saw it manifest itself on your show
Saturday,
with Gareth A. Davies. Let's have a listen to what Don had to say on Saturday night.
Along the way, some things happened to you where you're now, he's become my biggest critic, based with no foundation. So I don't know what I've done to you, my friend. Every time any of my, Daniel in particular, you've got it wrong every time, my dear friend. Ever wrong, badly wrong. Yeah.
Well, what with Daniel, you mean?
Yeah, your predictions. Without I don't want you to say, oh, Daniel's gonna win. It's just the way. No, wait. It's just the way you say. This is deeper because remember, I keep bringing the age into it. I'm a very wise old man.
You are.
And when someone speaks, I've also become a psychologist. I didn't get a degree in it, but human psychology. I study humans. Mm-hmm. I made my job to study humans. And there's a deeper thing. And that's what gets me. It almost becomes personal. It's almost like you're wishing for me to fail.
No, that's not true.
No. I'm telling you.
That's not true.
No, but I'm telling you how it comes across. It's
I pick with my head, not my heart, Don.
It's almost like you're wishing. You're getting your personal thoughts cluttered with your profession. You're mixing the two. You should always be able to separate them. Okay?
No, I always pick with my head, not my heart. So
it's an observation.
If I pick with my heart, I'll be with you. Right? You know that.
No, like I said, it's a deeper meaning. It's not just you. It's not an isolated problem.
Now, you're never going to hear any objections to me to the Lance Llewellyn Bowen lookalike getting some, albeit he's an escapee from the Thriller video in that jacket. But I don't know what to make of that from Don Charles. You were there, sort of refereeing it. I saw the creeping in of some sort of persecution complex from Don, which was my takeaway. Where do you stand on the conversation that went on? Because it went deeper and longer than that, and it got even more heated at the end where I think he said, no, you don't wish me well. No, you don't do this, or whatever else you say you do.
Yeah.
You sat there and listened to that.
I found it odd.
What did you think?
I found it odd. When Don and Ian Dubois was with him, part of his team, I
saw that, yeah.
They both came into the studio. Good energy, really good energy. And the whole process of them being in on Saturday night was to celebrate Daniel's great win, what they've done for Daniel and why he's at this particular stage and what comes next. And we had that for about 10 minutes. And then that conversation then began. I come away from it and the dust has settled on it a little bit. And I think to myself, there must be something deeper there that maybe I'm not privy to, because the conversation didn't make sense at all. He's calling Gareth out for making a pre-fight pick.
It wasn't just Gareth, though, was it? Gareth was in his eye line.
Yes.
Gareth was his focus. But he was talking about all pundits and how pundits don't make predictions, which, by the way, is their job, right? That should be sacked, and they affect his life and they affect his outcomes, and that they affected his journey. And I didn't really know where Don was going with it. It felt like I'm now in a position where I've got the heavyweight champion of the world, and I'm going to serve up a few people, and I'm going to put them in their place because I don't think that they've been inherently as supportive of me as I think they should be. I think it's very unwise to describe yourself as a wise man. I think other people should do that for you, but that's just a matter of style, I suspect. But I was slightly disappointed with it. I mean, again, I make the point, I'm quite happy for Gareth to get as much as he can for people. But in that one, I was really surprised with Don. It felt like a really strange thing to do because you've got the heavyweight champion of the world. You've proven it.
Celebrate the moment.
Celebrate the moment. And if people have been on the way, well, welcome to the world that we all live in. People are rude and unpleasant and don't do things that you want to. And sometimes you have to rise above it and go, well, I'm here, so you can't do anything about it now, can you? Do you think he's right, though? Do you think he's right? Well, Don was talking about people talking. It's an opinion, right? If you don't like my opinion, too bad, right? It's my opinion. Who am I to him talking about you in this moment, Jai? Whether he cares or not. If someone of you really like opinions and you really value, then you can have that. But most of the time, it's people that you don't know, that've got no vested interest, they're not serving out an agenda.
And there you go.
They just have a belief system.
And there you go. Boxing is a sensitive subject, sensitive sport, because it's primal. You're putting yourself on the line, aren't you? You're going out there and you are giving your all in order to win a sporting contest. From my point of view, I don't work with any of the promoters closely. I don't work with any of the channels closely because I don't want my view to be clouded on the things that I speak about. So therefore, when I make a pick based on the data that's in front of me and my interpretation of that data.
No bias.
I try my best to give you that ruling. It's not personal, ever. I said to Don within that conversation, I picked AJ. I picked AJ to try to beat Dubois based on the information that was presented. You proved me wrong. You proved Gareth wrong. As he was alluding to, you proved 97% of the population wrong. Enjoy the moment, mate. Enjoy the moment. There's something else there that I'm not privy to as to why that conversation was
very sensitive. Like I mean, I spent years in football and I thought there were some divisive, disingenuous people in that business and oversensitive and had too much of themselves in that business. But boxing is 10 times worse. Massively. 10 times worse. I want to go back to the heavyweight division or carry on with the heavyweight division and ask about your mate, a good pal of yours, who I happen to really like, Joseph Parker. He's had a fabulous 12 to 18 months. What do you think the landscape looks like for him? What's on the radar for him?
Daniel Dubois.
Yes, definitely.
That's the fight.
I believe he's coming off, very good wins. He's proved himself to be up the top again, and I believe it's a fight that should happen for sure.
He's your mate. Does he beat Daniel Dubois?
Sorry?
Does he beat Daniel Dubois?
I believe he has the tools to beat any heavyweight, to be honest. I'm not joking. I feel like he's got the good hand speed, a good chin, he's got the good ability. He's just got to use it and capitalise on it, you know what I mean? And like I said, Dubois got a good chin. It's not about knocking him out. You just got to fight smart. That's science we go back to, It's winning the rounds, doing what you got to do, break him down. And I believe Joseph Parker has the good pedigree to do that. He has the skill set to do that.
Where's the change coming in? Because I went to see him fight Anthony in 2018 at Millennium, and I was impressed with the pre-match talk.
Referee wrecked it.
Referee wrecked it. But also, I watched him get beat by Joe Joyce, which looked to me like that was the swan song. And he's found another gear, and he's found another way of resolving problems, and he's letting his hands go more now, isn't he? And all the ability that we think that we had before that he wasn't exhibiting, albeit he'd won a world title. Why do you think there's been a change in him? Because there is a change in him, isn't there?
Just life, you know what I mean? I think he's just going through life, learning on the way. It means more to him now. You can see him in his conditioning and his training. It's taken him to another level. Everyone can have the ability, you know what I mean? You can have the ability to be a world champion, but unless you're fit and strong enough to do what you need to do for 12 rounds, then it means nothing. You know what I mean? So I think once great fighters know that they have to take it to that next level and they start unlocking those things in their head where, they thought they trained hard then, but now when they're surrounded by other world champions and there's levels, you know what I mean? You're just constantly leveling up. We don't go through the motions, it's perfect practice. Not practice don't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So I feel like he's just realised that. He has found his second win. It's exciting, man. I feel like the whole heavyweight division, even with Daniel Dubois at the moment winning this, it just opens up, even more doors. So
absolutely,
it's exciting for the sport.
Absolutely.
Joe became champion really young, and maybe a little bit too early for him at 24 years of age when he beat Andy Ruiz that night. He's a better fighter now than he was when he was world champion. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Experiences with Tyson Fury. He's now working with Andy Lee. These types of characters, even stuff about nutrition. You speak to him, he's working with George Lockhart about his nutrition. He's putting on the size properly rather than, just sticking it on willy-nilly. He's the informed guy. If he can get up off shots off Zhang, then let's have a rock and roll with Daniel Dubois and let's see what happens.
No, I mean, I like him. I like him as a fighter. I like him as a man. I think he's a proper. He's a proper guy. A lot of these Antipodeans are because they've got this sort of straightforward mentality, which is, here I am, this is the reality of me, and I don't care what
Let's have a fight.
Absolutely, and I love that about them. Dana White, last one for this show. Dana White, and the rumours that he is talking about getting involved in the boxing game.
He's coming.
He's your mate, Adam. Why don't you give us a little bit of an insight into what you think that looks like?
Well, the UFC model works, doesn't it? I think the majority of fight fans that look at the UFC model where you've got one belt in each division, so therefore when you've got a champion, that's the person that is crowned as the undisputed champion. You've got a lesser amount of weight divisions. The contenders all fight the contenders, and the champion always fights the number one contender. So that model works. When obviously we can talk about pay structure and various things like that, and that might be a little bit of a different angle on whether that works in boxing or not. I don't know. But what I do know is that from listening to Turki Al-Sheikh, he seems to have a very similar mentality on the way boxing should look to Dana White. And they've obviously been speaking together. He's been speaking about doing a fight league in some way, shape or form. I think Dana would be the perfect figurehead face person to speak to in order to front something like that up going forward. And that for me is extremely exciting because I want to see something like that.
As a fighter, you probably heard, maybe you weren't watching at the time, but you've heard Turki Al-Sheikh talk about future boxing leagues. When you look at that as a fighter, what's your immediate reaction to
Man, 100%.
You like that one?
I love it. Just rock up, fight, and go home. All this politics and all this, trying to matchmake and all this bullshit. But I've been fighting, like I said, I've been fighting for it since I was a little boy. I'm used to rocking up to a tournament. Everyone weighs in and the winner leaves. You know what I mean? That's how it should fight. That's how you find out who the best is. Have a competition every year. Like, man, they need that structure of people, the best fighting the best. You know what I mean? I feel like it's perfect. It's just all this other outside noise and politics that just get involved. As a fighter, it holds us back from reaching our full potential. You know what I mean? We're just getting famous off Instagram and all I want to be known as the best fighter. That's it. When you see me, I want you to say, he's the best cruiserweight in the world. That's it.
Do you think you're alone in that? Do you think you're a bit of a dying breed in that mentality?
Man, I don't know. I believe there's others out there, you know what I mean? But I just respect the sport. The sport's given me everything, so.
Very impressive, mate. Well said. Right, that's it for episode 89 of Talk Boxing. Thank you, Adam, for joining me. And
always a pleasure, mate.
Irrepressible Jai Opetaia. Lovely to see you.
Appreciate it.
And we'll see you next time we're out.